So we are here today with James Sutcliffe, Director of Music at Monster Energy. How you doing, James?
Very well, thanks, mate.
Good. I want to jump straight into it. So the idea of having a Director of Music is, I think, quite a progressive move for the music industry. We're seeing the role in quite a few different companies. Can you tell us a bit about what the role entails at Monster?
Sure. I mean, for a brand like Monster that is, owns many brands within a portfolio, having somebody as a specialist in kind of each of the areas in which it plays in, I think has been, quite a successful move for them historically in the sports field, and I think they've carried that through into music. And so for me, my role is to help to set the music direction for the brands that operate within music, and then more specifically within that, it's negotiating artist deals, brand partnerships, and festival sponsorships as well across all of our markets in EMEA.
Right. And in terms of, I guess you've been working at Monster for how many years?
Just over 2 and a bit years now.
Right.
Yeah.
What's been one project that you've sort of really loved being involved with? I'm sure there's quite a lot that you can list.
Yeah, there's a few. I mean, the Defected partnership in particular is one that is kind of close to my heart, because it's one that it sort of came from a dinner meeting. I've been friends with those guys for a number of years, and being part of it from the very start. And seeing it go from what was a chat over a few beers and some dinner to then, ending up on the shelves.
Nice. And what was the Defected partnership for those who don't know?
So the partnership with Defected is now in its second year. I was given a challenge with Relentless, a couple of years ago by the commercial side of the business to help drive, penetration and drive rate of sale. So it was coming up with something that would encourage people and engage them to go back and buy, more cans, essentially. So the premise of the Defected partnership is to, with every can, you are able to download a free track from Defected, and you also entered into a draw to win tickets to a number of Relentless sponsored festivals and Defected events. In the first year that we did it, which was last year, it was widely kind of regarded as one of the most successful on-can promotions that certainly that Relentless had ever done, and that our bottling partner Coca-Cola had seen as well in music. It really seemed to strike a chord, which was great. And as a result, we're now in the second year, and that's led to an addition to the partnership, which was us going in with them on Defected Croatia. So we took a stage there as well. So we opened the party there, or opened the festival, sorry. And then more recently, the Relentless Energy EP that came out on Friday of last week.
Wow. So with that EP, was it curated by you and Defected essentially?
Yeah, I mean the basis of that idea was to, historically this partnership has been very much led around the drinks part of it. Okay, so it was using and helping or using Defected's name to help get us in front of an audience that are into music. I mean, where this started was, Relentless, when it first started working in music, went really kind of underground and credible, but it was very much based around the UK urban scene. As we moved into electronic music, I wanted to make sure that we kept a lot of that credibility. We didn't just want to go straight, for a mass market brand partnership. We needed to take our consumers on a journey.
Of course.
And so making that step up to Defected was essentially, going with a brand that has built huge credibility over 20, 25 years, but is still mass market enough that there's a big audience there. I mean,
Right.
their listening figures for their radio show in the UK alone, were incredible. So we knew that there was a big audience there, but we wanted to get in front of them. And so, as I said, it was mainly about, pushing the drink side of things. What I wanted to do this year to try and switch it up a little bit was actually use a Defected brand to talk to their audience in a way that comes from them and is credible, and a way that their audience would believe in it. It didn't look like a sellout. The music on the EP, the 3 tracks, one from SKT, one from Frankie Rizzardo, another from Armin Edge and Dance, they're all part of the promotion. They're all available on the can. So there was a bit of a, if you like these tracks, you can get more of them by buying a can of Relentless, but essentially they're brilliant tracks. They weren't sort of recorded by unknown artists. They're all well-established artists making great music, and that was the thinking behind that. And I think as a move for an energy drink to do that, me personally, I always like to try and do things differently. We need to be creative and try and move the needle a little. As to coin a sort of marketing buzzword, but it's true. When doing stuff like this needs to push boundaries, and I think needs to get people thinking. And so that was really sort of part of the drive behind it.
Nice. And what's the standout track for you on the EP?
Frankie's track is amazing. I mean, they're all amazing, but Frankie's is great. It's currently at number 16, I think, on Tracksource. The house chart, so it's moving. I mean, we've got a couple of great videos of him playing out this weekend. I think I'm in Edge and Dance played their track in Ecuador last night. So they're getting plays. These guys are actually playing these tracks as part of their set. So it's not just I've got to tick a box because of this brand thing. They've made music that they're proud of, and they want to show that a live audience. So it's great. And
so for the general consumer, if you were to go to Beatport or Tracksource to buy this, it's actually listed as a Relentless EP.
Yeah, if you search in Tracksource or Beatport, you just type in Relentless Energy EP, and there it comes. I think it's $4 on Tracksource, something like that. So
nice.
Go check it out.
Yeah, that's really cool. One thing I wanted to talk about, which is festival partnerships. Yep. Obviously, festivals have been a huge part of any drink brand's sort of strategy, and it can be quite a competitive space to stand out in the festival landscape. Your lead stage with Relentless has been one which I think has got a lot of notoriety online. Loads of people are really excited about the lineups that you've curated. Obviously, the stage looks amazing. Can you tell us a bit about that partnership, and then also we can go into some of the other festival partnerships that you've done?
Yeah, I mean, the partnership with Leeds is now next year will be the 12th year. So it's a very long-standing relationship, and I don't think many people realise it goes back that far. Wow. Relentless, from its inception, has always been involved in music. It's only up to sort of modern day, when I say that, in the last 2.5 years, where we've moved into electronic music and into, as I said, more UK urban scene. So I've been running the stage now for the last 3 festivals, and for me, I'm really proud of it because we own it. We design it. We work on the lineup. We long list it and short list it and curate it ourselves over the course of a year. And so it's really a brand-driven exercise. A lot of brands in this space will very often badge a stage that is given to them by the festival. Right. The lineup isn't theirs. They pay a big chunk of money just to put their logo on it. And I feel that you're kind of doing the audience a bit of a disservice in that respect, because it's just transactional. For us, as I said earlier, in terms of wanting to do things different, we wanted to put our stamp on the stage. And it's not only from a brand perspective, there's an education piece to it as well. So we put artists on the lineup that we feel are ones to watch. So this year in particular was a bit of a mix. We had a lot of new up-and-coming artists on there, as well as established artists. So for me, it was educating what is quite a young crowd. Here's some legends, the likes of Heartless Crew. Most of the kids in that front row and weren't born when Heartless Crew first came out. And then it was, I guess the juxtaposition was then having artists that are, just broken through and even unsigned or unknown. We did a competition with DJ Mag this year to win a slot on the stage. We chose 4 winners. Each one opened the stage on the 4 nights, and so that was kind of our way of helping to bring artists through as well. But as a concept, as a stage, I mean, we're now the second biggest stage at the festival.
Wow.
So it's,
I want to move on to that point of breaking through artists.
Sure.
But just before we touch on that, what do you think? I mean, your experience has obviously been quite broad across the industry and working with festivals directly. What do you think makes such a great brand festival partnership?
I think it goes back to experience. Working, firstly, actually going back before that, finding a partner that thinks in the same way that you do. There's a lot of festivals out there who, it's expensive to put on a festival. It's high risk. And a lot of festival owners, certainly independents, don't start to see any profit until maybe 3 years in. So brand money is hugely valuable. But of course, what you find is festivals that just want to take the money aren't building longevity into the partnership. And so, firstly, that is one key thing: is do it. Going into it, never do it just for 1 year or just for a check. You know, it has to be part of a longer term plan. And as I said, what you then do is you can build an experience. It has to add value to the festival for me, because there's so many festivals now. And, you know, where consumers now, they've got X amount of disposable income, they might choose 3 or 4 festivals that they're going to go to in the summer. That might even replace their summer holiday, you know. You want to put something on as a brand that people are going to remember. 2 years ago at We Are Festival, you know, we put on what was an activation, but it was a bar with a DJ booth above it. At one point we were asked to stop the music because there was so many people at that activation that people weren't able to get in and out of a couple of the tents next to us. Wow. Which, so for me, it's, you know, disruptive, but it's adding value. And, you know, and there's, you know, I searched on Instagram, you know, after that weekend, and the amount of photographs that people are taking in front of the Relentless activation was, you know, it shows that doing things in the right way and adding an experience that people want to interact with is really important.
I found it really interesting, the DJ Mag competition that you mentioned, and obviously how brands can use their platform to break through the next generation of artists. What are your thoughts about that idea on its own, like brands breaking through artists, and how do you think is the best way to do it? I think there are certain formats that brands have got, you know, used to sort of building around, but you know, what do you think about the role that can brands break through artists generally?
I think so, you know, and I think Relentless have been quite successful, or, you know, have played a part in that. I think, you know, breaking new artists is expensive. You know, record labels, it's a numbers game, right? So they'll sign X number of artists, and, you know, knowing that only a small percentage of them will, in inverted commas, break. And the investment that's required to do that often doesn't stretch to all of those artists. And so, you know, as I said, some people will fall by the wayside that may have actually had an opportunity to break. And where brands such as Relentless comes in is, you know, they're able to, in an era where artists, certainly as I found in the urban side of things, artists are fiercely independent, or a lot of them are fiercely independent and want to stay that way, and so they should. And artists, you know, will naturally gravitate to brands that are able to help them. Certainly in marketing, you know, it's putting money into helping to pay for videos, or, you know, maybe even putting some money into helping a tour and things like that. And I think brands also need to know their place. Okay, so, you know, there's some brands out there who will, you know, create record labels, or want to retain rights and release records in that way, and that's fine. But again, it's knowing where, I guess, your position in the food chain starts and ends. Okay, we've released an EP this year, but it's with a record label. You know, it's part of it's a different setup. You know, when we work with artists, and you know, certainly when we had our recording studio, those artists retain those rights. We're providing them a service, or we're being a facilitator. Right. You know, and I think that's important, and that's why brands can help, because they give artists the tools that they might not necessarily have, or budget that they might not necessarily get from a label, and allow them to just focus on their art and creativity. And I think that's when, if you get it right, of course it doesn't, you know, not every artist that teams up with a brand is gonna do something, but you know, I certainly do believe that brands can certainly help to break artists. I mean, you've got Red Bull have done an amazing job to you know, mention the elephant in the room. You know, the likes of Nina Kravitz have come through Red Bull Music Academy, Black Coffee. You know, there's been some real successes. You know,
I heard Skepta apparently met ASAP in a Red Bull event, and it's like, look at where that's gone. It's, you know,
these things happen, and you know, as a brand, they've been kind of omnipresent really in music for a number of years. And so when you're a brand that operates in that world and has as many assets as they do in that world, then of course it stands to reason that, you know, artists are going to meet each other, collaborate in either at your studio complex or at an event that you've put on. So, but I think that's slightly different to the brand breaking the artist. Right. They've, you know, there's an event that they've met, but as I said, things like RBMA, you know, as a process has been really, you know, important.
Yeah, of course. And I think obviously within the Monster ecosystem, the portfolio, you've got Burn Energy, which has got a big history of supporting artists, and almost, it's from as much as I can remember anyway, it's that's been a big part of the strategy. With Relentless, you have Number 5, which I don't know if is existent anymore, but just as an idea, it seems like creating a platform for artists is quite important, or at the heart of what you guys do when you're thinking of your strategies.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've in a space where so many brands, not just energy brands, alcohol brands have been in the music space for a while, and over the last couple of years, it seems like that is the go-to strategy now. It's right, let's get into music. I think where we differ slightly is that both myself and the team that work for me, we're all from music backgrounds, and so I certainly feel that we're coming at it one, for the right reasons, but two, we care, and we've got something we can add. It's not just latching onto a scene or an industry because it's the cool thing to do and we want to go to some nice events. It's we want to put something in place that helps. But also in doing so, we're able to talk to an audience in a way that, I guess it's about storytelling. So when you put on something like Burn Residency that has, 9-10 months worth of content, and you're working with, taking unknown artists from essentially their bedroom through to, headline a stage at a major festival, that will resonate with a whole audience base. And even if you're not a DJ yourself, but you're just into that music, the brand affinity of, seeing a brand go, kind of do that kind of thing, rather than just putting, sponsoring an artist and putting on an event, maybe a secret event behind closed doors that you don't know how you could get to it, and it's not that accessible. What does that mean for me, etc. There's all those kind of sort of potential pitfalls in just sponsoring something. So the way we like to do things, as I said, it's we like to do things differently, and I think giving back is also quite a nice thing that a lot of big brands don't generally do, and there's a lot of I guess skepticism around sponsored and paid for relationships because it can be very clinical, and people are savvy now. The people are cynical and they're savvy, and social media has opened a lot of people's eyes to how things work, and you now have to put paid partnership on an Instagram post. So doing it for the right reasons in the right way, I think, is more important than ever.
I want to quickly, just a very quick question. Obviously there's so many amazing brand partnerships in the music industry. Is there one that kind of strikes you as being like maybe not the best, but just one that's really inspired you recently or just in the past?
The Levi's campaign with Skepta was great. That whole concept of giving back and going back to a community that is, I guess, underfunded or needs help and support in terms of getting kids getting into music and putting their energies into positive stuff and learning that it doesn't matter where you live or where you come from, there are opportunities out there, and I think that campaign in particular, because of the message and what it stood for, I think was really, really good for me. It wasn't massive in terms of mass market, but I think that was part of its charm in a way.
Of course, I think that definitely when we list the best brand partnerships internally as a company as well, we always mention that one because it feels like there is this, just because it really resonates, and I guess the idea that brands are almost kind of waking up to a purpose that they can have and looking beyond the kind of maybe superficial idea of doing a partnership is actually they can, like you said, give back and create something positive for a community. Which are you seeing that quite a lot in terms of ethics and brands and the role that they can kind of play?
It's not enough, not enough, and I think it's important. At the same time, it is difficult, certainly as kind of guardians of a brand that essentially, you're not in full control of what goes on. There's commercial decisions made, at different layers and possibly even out of a different country, and so those kind of processes and thoughts don't always kind of make it down to the ground. But I'm not speaking on behalf of Monster there. That's just I guess a observation of other companies and just the industry as a whole. Some people are doing it, and that's great. I'd like to see more of it, definitely.
So I want to move to very quickly, for IMS Ibiza 2019, a key theme is about optimizing creativity and productivity. So over the last 2 or 3 years, there's been a real emphasis on wellness and really figuring out how we can not only talk about the issues about drug abuse, but also mental health. And I just want to hear quickly, how do you stay creative and perform at your best, especially in an industry where there's so many distractions? There's sometimes where I know I've been out from Tuesday till Sunday just at different events, and it's like that's literally my whole week just disappeared in events. So how do you find time to be balanced and creative?
Yeah, I mean, for me, a big change was probably last year. I started regularly exercising, properly running, and in the times where I wasn't traveling, I'd historically, I guess, gone through a period of time where I hadn't done that, hadn't looked after my body enough. And also when you're traveling a lot, although you feel like I'm just sat down on a plane, it takes it out of you, and you don't understand or don't always appreciate just how much kind of being physically fit can help. But it also helps me in terms of creativity to clear my head. I also do a lot of thinking. When you're on a treadmill for half an hour, it's a great opportunity to actually shut off from distractions and think. And I think it was also just understanding that you do need to switch devices off and have some time where outside distractions aren't there. I just put a rule in place at my house just recently where we didn't do enough of it, but we sit together as a family and all devices go in a box for 2 hours over dinner, and it gives you time to unwind. There's no beeping going on, there's no distractions, no notifications, no emails, no calls. And actually you can find that when you do those sort of things, it allows you to almost kind of press a reset button for a period of the day. And then when you come back to having to think about a problem or a campaign or whatnot, you're kind of, you're fresh again,
Yeah, it's interesting. I remember I read this stat, well, it was a research actually, which showed that when people have their phone next to them and it vibrates, they actually release, a lot more people have anxiety. So where they were measuring the sort of stress levels. And I find that really fascinating that our equipment and our technology can really have this impact. So a digital detox makes a lot of sense. Talking about stats and research, I think something that is being addressed more and more is mental health, especially within males. And I think in the UK, male suicide is one of the biggest killer of men under 45. 2 years ago, 75% of all suicides were males. Do you think that it's a taboo subject that in terms of, especially with men, discussing mental health and how they might be feeling?
I think so. I think it's getting better. Just the fact that those stats are kind of now being talked about is, people have started to identify a problem, and that's always, as I say, the first part of, trying to change something or fix it. I know me personally, I've got a good group of friends in the business, and we're all of a similar age, and we talking is actually something that has started to become more commonplace. I still think a lot of people do struggle to talk about it, and that will obviously contribute to those figures, but it is becoming I guess more socially acceptable for guys to kind of talk about their feelings in that way, and as I said, having a strong group of friends who are all going through the same kind of things has helped me, but also just outside of that, my peer group from school, the guys that I grew up with, just recently I've noticed a period of time where a couple of them have either gone to me or gone to each other and said, if you need to chat, because they're seeing things on the news as well. It's not just the music business. Obviously, it's accentuated in businesses like this where there are distractions and alcohol and late nights and those sorts of things can, they all play a part in people's mental health. And I think, as I said, yes, there is a stigma. I think it is getting better, but I think there's still loads more left to be done. And I think, industry bodies and even employers, that again, that's a thing that I think needs to probably be looked at as well, where I don't think, again, I'm not speaking for my company, but historically, businesses I've worked for in the business, I don't think they have taken it seriously enough that it is a problem. And I hope that that's something that, as we start to address this conversation as a group of people, and when I say that I mean as an industry, hopefully that'll start to be taken into account as well.
Yeah, I agree. Social media, I think, can potentially have a real sort of negative effect on people's mental health, especially the next generation. I've got a good friend who always talks to me about this idea of instant gratification, and how, you know, the next generation and maybe even us, we're growing up in this world where, you know, you put your post up on Instagram and you're just waiting for people to like it and comment on it, and there's almost like this crazy feeling that everyone's getting obsessed with the likes and comments. And do you think social media has a negative impact? If we were to look at artists and the music industry in general, do you think it can affect people's mental health?
Absolutely. I mean, it's, you know, people put up their best version of themselves online, you know. If you were to scroll through your timeline now, you know, it's a cold sort of evening, but everybody's having the best time, you know, and they're looking amazing and, you know, whatnot. And certainly for young people who, that's the only thing they can see at this moment in time. I mean, I've got an 8-year-old daughter, you know, and I'm constantly having to kind of, I mean, she doesn't have Instagram and things like that, but, you know, she's well aware of, you know, we post a photograph of the family up or whatnot, and one of the things she'll ask me is, how many likes has it got? And I was like, that doesn't matter, you know, and I think it's, for young people, that is, you know, I mean, I'd have hated to have gone to school through, you know, during this era, because, you know, that I can only imagine what it must be like,
yeah, of course.
You know, to have to do that. But it's a huge problem, and I think from an artist perspective as well, I know it. I've got artist friends, you know, close friends who are artists, and they're looking at other artists and what they're posting, and they straight away they're comparing themselves and their what perceived levels of success. You know, how did they get that sponsorship deal, or, you know, why did they get that feature, or right. You know, it's kind of, it's there, and it's not just kids who are looking at, you know, people driving flashy cars and, you know, with designer clothes. Artists are affected by it in exactly the same way,
yeah.
And so yeah, I think it is dangerous.
Yeah, nice. So just to wrap it up on some of the final points. So you've worked in quite many different sides of the industry, I know you worked in marketing and brand design agencies before, right?
Yeah, I had a period of time where I was in creative agencies, experiential, so I've done that right. side of stuff as well.
And then Ministry of Sound as head of events.
That's right.
And then you worked in the artist management side, and now at Monster. So you've really seen, I guess, the whole spectrum in a way of the industry. What are some of the challenges that you want to see the industry address, given the perspective that you've had?
I mean, it's been no secret this year. You know, is the kind of the treatment of women and the I guess equality and opportunities for women in the business. I think it's still not anywhere near where it should be. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I have a lot of female friends in the business who are doing amazing things, but the amount of work the extra that they have to kind of do to get heard and get taken seriously right. sometimes isn't great. And I think that's something on that level, as I mentioned earlier around the mental health thing. I think that needs to be something that is actively addressed certainly by employers and you know, and people who are guardians of people's lives. You spend more time at work than you do at home, so, you know, I think that's certainly an important part. Mm-hmm. On the kind of nuts and bolts of the business, I mean, this is I guess we could do a whole section on this alone, but I think artist fees are, certainly in dance music, are starting to become out of control. Mm-hmm. It's having a huge impact on venues, I know that much, and I know that, you know, there probably needs to be some kind of, say consortium, but some kind of grouping together and working together of venues to actually, you know, sort of help each other in terms of combating the rapidly increasing right. Fees, and you know, there's no secret of the link between the costs of going on to holiday to somewhere like Ibiza for a weekend and going clubbing is largely driven by, you know, the cost of DJs, you know, and of course there is a different side to it, you know, the whole VIP culture and link to Instagram and things like that. You know, they know that there's a whole audience of people who, you know, want to do that and will spend thousands of pounds, euros, whatever, to go on a weekend. And but again, DJ fees are a massive part of that. So yeah, that's something I'd like to see addressed too.
Nice. So again, given your experience, and, you know, like I said, you've definitely covered over a lot of different bases in the industry, especially being quite young to do so. What are some of the tips that you would give for the next generation interested in following your path or breaking into the industry?
Well, firstly, I think there's no shortcut to success, whatever you perceive success to be. I think one thing I have realised and learned over recent years is young people coming out of university, or not even gone to university but just starting their career, and again, it does link to things like social media. They're quite entitled. You know, people think that there's a magic formula. Like, you know, I've got 3,000 followers on Instagram. You know, I deserve a job, or you know, I need to be promoted quicker. But you know, and there's no shortcut. So firstly, that I think, you know, I've done a broad range of things within the industry, but I've largely there's been a theme throughout, and there was, you know, quite quickly I learned what I wanted to do, or certainly, you know, I had a vision, and I think that's important. You know, people can very often float around and bounce around and never really kind of truly find what they want to do, or they become frustrated as a result. So I think, you know, kind of knowing that, but also self-awareness is a massive point. And I think, you know, when you're young, it's very easy to kind of not fully understand or appreciate your strengths and weaknesses, and being honest about them as well. Because once you realise either what your strengths are and what you can bring to a situation or to a business, you're able to articulate that, then, you know, people can see a value. On the flip side, and you know, the negative side is if you aren't aware of your failings, or there's things that you need to work on, but you're not aware of that. You're not being true to yourself, and you're never going to be able to progress. So I would certainly say that's an important part as well.
Nice. So I'm going to have a little bit of fun. I'm going to throw a few curveballs that I didn't prepare you for. There's only one or two, don't worry.
Okay.
So the first one is, if you could invite anyone to dinner, alive or dead, 3 people actually, let's say, alive or dead, who would they be?
Ooh, okay. Liam Gallagher, Tupac, Steve Coogan.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's a good dinner party.
Yeah.
What are some of the top 5 artists that you think are going to have a really big 2019?
Okay, I mean, these guys aren't all kind of, they've been doing it for a while behind the scenes, but they're on the verge of big things, and some of them are kind of there already. Mason Maynard, I would certainly say. Lindsay Matthews, great female DJ, played on our stage at Leeds this year. She's going to do some good things, I believe. Who else? A guy called Nathan Cozzetto, Coz. He's just signed with some tracks to Mousetrap, and is performing with him at Printworks in a couple of weeks. He's certainly one to watch. Outside of electronic music, I would say there's an MC called H from Manchester, absolutely incredible talent. Nice. So I would throw that out there as a non-electronic music one. And a fifth, that's a tough one now. I'm just trying to think of who else I'm kind of, Ben Sterling.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, Ben Sterling. I mean, he's, from a production point of view, is absolute incredible talent, and I think he's only now starting to do the live thing, you know, in kind of any kind of numbers. You know, I've seen a few shows that he's played at, but I've seen a few of his bookings that are coming up, and I think next year, from a live perspective, will be a big one, certainly from a festival perspective for him. From
in the music industry, who would you look at as being someone that's really inspired you? Maybe someone you've worked with, or just someone in general?
Someone, actually, and I met him for the first time this summer at Sonar, James Barton, of Cream fame, and now at Superstruct. You know, to go from, you know, working class beginnings like that, and, you know, kind of, I dare say in Liverpool, it was, you know, it's sort of, you know, it's that scally mentality of just kind of getting up and doing something, and then creating that brand, you know, what it became, and then what he's gone on to do from there. And he's also a really nice bloke as well. So yeah, I'd certainly say he's someone that I definitely look up to. Nice.
So just to wrap everything up, I want to quickly hear your thoughts on why you think IMS and events like IMS are really important for the industry.
I mean, what I've kind of noticed in recent years with IMS is that, you know, it's starting to become more of a consumer-facing thing as well. And so what it does is it opens the doors of the industry up to the punters, you know, and beyond that, you know, with social media and things like that, it's now able to really kind of shine a light on what goes on behind the scenes, because I think that's really important. You know, people see the output, they don't often see the amount of work that goes into this. You know, I think the misconception, you know, for a lot of people who are outside the business is, you know, if you're working in it, you're, you know, working in nightclubs or at festivals or wherever with artists, it's just all one big laugh, you know, and it's not a real job. And I think things like IMS, you know, really kind of show that, but also bring to light, you know, really important subjects that, you know, are kind of part of the music business, but kind of, you know, can have a, I guess, a connection with people outside of it as well.
Nice. And finally, very quick one, we're going to see you at IMS Ibiza 2019. What club are you going to be in most?
Purely for the night, because it's one of my favourite club nights to go to, is Glitterbox at High. You know, I was there several times this summer, and I mean, it's just amazing fun. So nice. I'll definitely be there for that.
Nice. Well, thanks for your time, James.
Nice one. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Nice.